I'm Joe.
And TJ.
And we are the Schoolhouse 302. And this is our Leading Better and Growing Faster series where we feature great books that are on the topic that we're talking about. And so we've been thrilled the last, few weeks or so. We've been diving into this topic of navigating the seas of school leadership. And, TJ, what I really like about this and what we've been doing is looking to nature, because we can learn so much. Sometimes all we got to do is just lift up your head, look outside. How is nature interacting, with itself? And I think, what we've decided here to talk about the undercurrents, the rip tides and the swells, all part of the ocean, right? And we're big ocean goers, but that all applies to leadership, and we can learn quite a bit from it. So I love the topic, but I gotta admit, I'm kind of nerding out on the whole biomimicry thing.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's important. It's a great analogy. We started with undercurrents, swells, riptides, then we broke down undercurrents. You can see that in the blog post at theschoolhouse302.com. You can go there, even if you're not recent to this video, you can search it on the site. And we're gonna break down swells and riptides in two coming blogs, because what happens is that we understand that as leaders, there are undercurrents, there are swells, and there are riptides. Undercurrents, what's that mean? You know what that is. It's an undertow. It comes, it hits you, and it gets you, and boom, you're gone, right? And you have a hard time swimming out of it. They actually say don't try to fight it. We're going to talk about that more with the swells. But man, is that undercurrent strong. Same thing applies to school leaders. Something comes along and it takes you, boom, off your focus. It pulls you under, it pulls you down, and it's really hard to get out of. And that's why we chose the books that we chose.
Absolutely. So the undercurrents, also think about this as a leader. Every decision that you make, that I make, TJ makes, it has an undercurrent. Personal, professional, doesn't matter. Everything we do sends a ripple. And it's really understanding that ripple, that undercurrent, and its effect. And, sometimes we think it might be a benign decision, and it's affected so many people in such a negative way. So you got to be just really sensitive to it. So let's get to our first book.
Yeah, so our first book is The Art of Impossible, a Peak Performance Primer by Stephen Kotler. And this book is about peak performance, and he breaks down peak performance into some categories that I think are really important for the reader to understand: motivation, learning, creativity, and flow. Getting into that flow state is the final part of the book. I'm going to tell you right now, Joe, 2023, this was my best book of 2023. It rivaled a Ryan Holiday book that I read. The Key is Stillness. Stillness is the Key is the title of that book. But man, this book is awesome. The Art of Impossible. I've already gifted this book several times, and we're just now getting into 2024. I love this book because it has data in it. It has research in it. It tells you stories, and just what a wonderful read. I'm probably going to read it again this year.
Kotler's a beast. For you to say that's your best read, knowing that you're a voracious reader, that's a big deal.
It is a huge deal, man. I'm up to sometimes 4 to 6 books a week. That's how we curate books, to be able to tell you which ones to read when we tell you 2 a month. But this one, I couldn't get enough of it. I probably rewinded and listened to it. I bought it in paper copy. I took copious notes, and I'm trying to put it into practice myself. The Art of Impossible. The deal here is that we think things are impossible and they're not. And there's an art to getting through to what people think is impossible. I think back to Roger Bannister and the 4-minute mile, and everybody thought you had to drink lion's blood and that the body couldn't run fast enough to get through the air. And then all of a sudden Roger Bannister breaks the 4-minute mile, and then 10 other people do it, 20 people do it. Now there's races of 4-minute miles. I think the last marathon, the guy ran 4-minute miles for 26 miles. That was at one time impossible to do. This guy tells you how to get to peak performance. And here's the thing, the connection. if you aren't ready for the undercurrent because you're preparing to have peak performance yourself, it's going to grab you and take you, and you're going to be going with it. This book can tell you how to make sure that you can fight that when it comes.
And when we develop that mindset, that is what allows us to really start functioning at a high level. We're the professional. We embody our professionalism. I think people struggle with that a little bit. Not only do they have the doubts of if it's possible, but really, can I do it? Well, maybe that person can, but can I? So that's why I chose the book I chose, TJ. This is by Curtis Murphy. Curtis Murphy is a VP of engineer out in California, game designer, which, is just really cool, active snowboarder. But I love this book. It's very practical. This is about what makes great managers great. We've also had the pleasure of interviewing Curtis, but here's why I love this book. It has stories, right? So when we get into learning about how we should manage people, it is nice to have a story associated with it because then you can relate. And really, when you're reading, you should even be thinking, all right, well, how would this apply to me? In what context? And you can even start thinking of your own narrative. But there's a couple stellar things in here that I want to point out. One, he says, assume confusion is everywhere. Now, when I first read that, I got to be honest, I even thought, is that negative? Are you thinking that folks don't get it? And the reality is, TJ, it's not negative at all because you're not judging them. This is about you assuming that everybody's confused, so you go forward with, unparalleled clarity. And so that's a key part of this. And then there's other things in here like praise, which is near and dear to our heart. Praise, but not just job well done. We know that doesn't work. The pat on the backs don't work. What works is very specific things that reinforce what you're praising and you want duplicated. TJ, you always say, what is it? You praise for effort and
excellence. And that's it, folks. Effort or excellence. We want to praise people for taking risks or doing things with precision.
And that works. The other thing that I love about here, and he said he still struggles with this, but it's that yes and. Quit shutting down conversations by saying but. Granted, look, it's hard work. Not everything fits. But there's usually something within an idea that is worth exploring a little further. So it might not be the original idea that comes out, but there might be a diamond in there. You got to find it. That's why being within your peak performance mentality is so crucial. That's why working in flow is so crucial. So just pick this up. You won't be disappointed. And we can't praise this book enough. It's excellent.
Yeah, it's excellent. And I like it because we always say leadership is counterintuitive. A lot of things that you think to do are not the right thing to do. In fact, the opposite may be true. Clarifying expectations, it's one of Covey's high trust behaviors. He talks about that. Oftentimes we just assume people know what they're doing and they don't. And clarifying their role is really important and it builds trust in the organization. We always leave you with a tip. And I'm going to take care of the tip tonight, Joe. I want people to make lists and to set goals, right? So the first part of the list is that a lot of people will pick up a book, they'll be gifted a book, they'll have a book recommendation, maybe you're gonna pick up these two, you'll read one, you'll read the other, and because you don't have a cue and you haven't made a list and you don't know what you're reading next, a month goes by and you haven't read deep enough. And leaders are readers, and so you've got to keep reading. I don't care what season it is. It's the beginning of 2024 for this post. That doesn't matter. You can set a goal for the month. You can set a goal for the year and just make a list of the books that you want to read. Goal setting. Goal setting is about getting better. So the first part of goal setting is how many books do you want to read? I said I try to do 4 to 6 a week. How many are you going to read? 1 a week? The average CEO reads 60 a year. Can you get there? If not, 20, 10. If you read a book a month, you're ahead of most people, but you got to set a goal and you got to try to reach that goal. And the second thing is, what are you trying to get better at? That's part of the goal too. And then dive deep. It's not good enough to read one book or two books or three books on any given topic. We want to get to probably 5 or 6 books on any individual topic to be able to feel like we're expert, that we really are practitioners, and we can put some of these things into place.
That's a huge point, TJ, because I remember listening to something of Tony Robbins at one point, and he said when he was first starting out, he read hundreds of books on psychology alone. Pick it up. And what the beauty of that is, the more you read in a given space that you want to get better at, I couldn't agree more with you with the goals, but the more you read, the more as your expertise grows, the more you're able to say, you know what, that's not me, or this is me. And I love that. I love it when I read it and like, look, you know what, that's not something I would do, but this is why. You got to be a little careful with that to make sure you're not just hiding from something, but you become so well versed within the topic, you're an expert.
It's so true. That's why you got to make your list. That's why you got to set your goals. And that's why you got to be a reader. Leaders are readers. There you have it. Leading Better and Growing Faster with Joe and TJ. These are our 2 book recommendations for this post. You can find us at theschoolhouse302.com. That's theschoolhouse302.com for book recommendations, blog posts, podcasts, and more, always on the topic of leadership. And we'll see you next time.